Hey Grand Old Dwarf, welcome back. We're going to learn about maneuvers in DC20, the upcoming TTRPG by the Dungeon Coach. If you're new around here, why not start at the beginning of the Let's Learn DC20 playlist here. This video is a little special because I've obtained secret insider knowledge of changes to maneuvers that will be in the next alpha version, 0.6. And I'll be sharing them with you today. My name is Brandon Lane, Let's Learn DC20. What are maneuvers? They're abilities available to martial characters to perform feats of strength and agility in battle. You gain access to maneuvers by gaining a martial mastery feature, from either being a martial class, through certain subclasses, or through multiclassing. Your martial mastery feature will tell you what maneuvers you have access to, but in general, at level 1, you'll have access to all attack maneuvers and then your choice of 4 extra ones, learning even more at even levels. You use maneuvers by spending the required action points and meeting any of the requirements or triggers. Maneuvers are divided into 5 categories. Attack maneuvers, focused on enhancing your attacks in various ways. Save maneuvers force your targets to make saving throws or suffer effects. Grapple maneuvers give you extra options when you have a creature grappled. And defense maneuvers lets you avoid or reduce damage to you and your allies. We also have weapon maneuvers, which let you perform special and unique moves and give you passive effects on your weapons. Before we dive in, there's a couple things we need to cover. Maneuver damage types. When a maneuver deals damage, its damage type matches your attack. If your attack deals multiple damage types, you can choose one of them. For save effects, some maneuvers will force the target to make a physical save against your save DC, or suffer an effect. If you force a creature to make a save against multiple different maneuver effects all in the same attack, then the creature only has to make one save for all the effects combined. Contest effects. Some maneuvers could force a contest between you and a target. If you initiate a contest against a creature with multiple maneuver effects, you both only need to make the contest roll once for all the effects. Spending stamina. You can also spend stamina points in place of action points when performing maneuvers. Righty-ho, let's jump in with attack maneuvers. You can use these maneuvers once you've selected a target and before you make your attack check. These maneuvers take effect if you succeed your attack check. Extended attack. Increase the melee range of your attack by 1, limited to once per attack. Power attack. Increase the damage you deal by 1. Sweep attack. Choose an extra target within one space of the original, that's also within your attack range. You make one attack check against all targets. If you hit your original target, you deal normal damage with any bonuses you had, and if you hit the extra target, you deal 1 damage of the same type, but you don't gain any bonuses or increases to this damage. Next, we have the save maneuvers. These require your target to make a physical save against your save DC, and if they fail, they'll suffer the effect. Expose. The target becomes exposed against the next attack you make against them before the end of your next turn. Hamstring. The target is slowed until the end of your next turn. Hinder. The target becomes hindered for the next attack check before the end of your next turn. Shove. The target is pushed 1 space away and an extra space for every 5 it fails its save by. Trip. The target falls prone. And remember, you can use multiple at a time. In a turn, you could spend 1 action point to make an attack, spend another on extended attack to increase your reach, and then spend 1 more to shove them as part of the same attack. Now you can make an attack roll to hit and damage them, and they make a save to resist being pushed back. This is called a dynamic attack save, and you can learn more about them here. Let's take a look at the grapple maneuvers. Obviously, you'll need to be grappling a creature, and then to perform the maneuver, you'll need to make an athletics check contested against the target's martial check. Body block. If you're targeted by an attack or a spell check that targets your physical defense, you can use a reaction to move a creature you're grappling in the way of the attack as a human shield. You both take half of the damage that you would have taken. And then as a little bonus, you can reposition that grappled creature into a spot adjacent to you. Restrain. A creature you're grappling is restrained until the grapple ends. On its turn, it can spend 1 action point to break being restrained, but remains grappled until the condition ends. The target takes 2 bludgeoning damage. Takedown. The target falls prone. Throw. As long as the creature you're grappling is smaller than you, you can throw them a number of spaces equal to half your might, and an extra space for every 5 they fail the contest by.
Hey Terry, you want some? This bitch empty!
Next up, we have defense maneuvers. Most of these are reaction maneuvers, which means that you can only use them if the trigger condition is met. Parry. Parry the platypus! Can be used when a creature you see within 1 space, including you, is targeted by an attack or a spell check that targets physical defense. As a reaction, you can grant the target a +5 bonus to their physical defense against the attacker spell. Protection can be used when a creature you see within one space is hit by an attack or a spell check that targets physical defense. As a reaction, you and the target both take half the damage, and the damage you take ignores any damage reduction. Raise Shield. You must be wielding a shield, and can be used if a creature you see within one space, including you, is targeted by an attack or spell check or target's physical defense. As a reaction, you reduce the damage against the target by an amount equal to your shield's physical defense. Sidestep can be used if you're targeted by an attack or spell check that targets physical defense. As a reaction, you can move one space as long as it's still within the attack's range. The attack or spell check now has disadvantage against you. Note that if you do move behind cover, you don't get any of the benefits of being behind cover for that attack. Swap. You swap places with a willing creature within one space, and attack of opportunities triggered by this movement only target you. Taunt. Pick a creature that can see or hear you within 5 spaces. Make an attack check against their mental save. On a success, the target is taunted by you for their next attack or spell check. You can spend an additional action point to full taunt, and have the effect last until the end of their next turn. Now, we move on to the weapon maneuvers. These maneuvers can only be performed if you're wielding the corresponding weapon. They each have an active maneuver that you can spend action points to perform, and a passive effect that's always on. You'll need the martial mastery features to use the active and passive effects. Axes. When you make an attack check, you deal +1 damage and force the target to make a physical save against bleeding. And the passive effect, you deal +1 damage to bloodied or bleeding creatures. Bows. You can, as part of an attack check, move up to 2 spaces away from a target without triggering attacks of opportunity. Its passive effect lets you score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20 if you're more than 10 spaces away from your target. Chained weapons. You deal +1 damage and force a physical save to make your target drop an object it's holding. The target has advantage on the save if they're holding it with 2 hands, and you can't disarm anyone that's 2 sizes bigger than you. If they fail the save, you can choose where it falls within 1 space of them. The passive effect lets your attacks ignore shield and half cover. You also deal +1 damage against targets that are wielding shields or behind half cover. Crossbows. As part of your attack, you can move 2 spaces closer to your target without triggering opportunity attacks. The passive effect lets you critically hit on a 19 or a 20 if you're within 5 spaces of the target. And you don't have disadvantage with crossbows while underwater, so don't forget to bring your crossbow and rubber ducky when it's bath time. Fists. When you make an attack check, you can deal +1 damage and force the target to make a physical save or get grappled by you. Passive effect, you deal +1 damage to creatures you are grappling, and wielding fist weapons counts as having free hands. Hammer. Enhance your attack with a +1 damage and force a physical save against being dazed on the next mental check it makes before the end of its next turn. And its passive effect deals +1 damage on dazed or petrified targets. Pick. Deal +1 damage and force a physical save against impaired on the next physical check before the end of your next turn. Passive, deal +1 damage on impaired creatures. Spear. You can deal +1 damage and increase the attack range by 1 space, but this can't be stacked with extended attack maneuver. You're not Mr. Fantastic after all. The passive effect of a +1 damage against mounted creatures, or when you move at least 2 spaces towards the target before making an attack check. And no disadvantage from being underwater, so you can bring your spear along with you to bath time too. Staff. +1 damage and a physical save against hindered on the next attack check or spell check. If they are already hindered, they fall prone. And the passive effect lets you have advantage on opportunity attacks against creatures and disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you. Swords give you a +5 bonus on attack checks. At least that's how it works in 0.5. I'm almost certain that it'll be changing to adding a D8 instead in 0.6, but I haven't had that officially confirmed. And the passive effect lets you deal +1 damage to hindered creatures. Finally, we have whips. You can deal +1 damage and force a physical save against being tethered by your whip. You can release them at any time. When you have a creature tethered, you can't use your whip to make attacks, and if the target is your size or smaller, they can't move out of the range of your whip. You can spend 1 action point to make a contested athletics check, and if you succeed, you can pull them 1 space in any direction within the range, and knock them prone. The creature can spend 1 action point on its turn to make a contested martial check to escape, and the passive effect lets you deal +1 damage against creatures that are further than 1 space away from you. And that's all the martial maneuvers you can use in DC20. Now, make a sweep attack against the subscribe and bell button if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next time where we cover martial techniques. And as always, Consume more content. Consume. 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 Consume.
Parry the consume.
Bye.